Magnus, but I think he has not big chance in this match today, with full respect.
Welcome guys, what's up? So the year is 2004 and the young prodigy Magnus Carlsen from Tønsberg, Norway is set to face the 13 times former world champion of chess at the time, Garry Kasparov, in a rapid tournament, and this game was played in the capital of Iceland, Reykjavik particularly. Magnus Carlsen and Garry Kasparov played quite a handful of games at the time, but this was the only game documented, probably because Magnus was a young aspiring genius, while Garry, who already was an old wine, who we must confess obviously had an edge over his young opponent considering the difference in elo, rank and experience. Garry was certainly the favored opponent here, no doubt, considering the fact that at the time he was ranked number 1 globally. However, this task did not faze the young man Magnus Carlsen, as when interviewed he had this to say: which means I really wanted to play him. We could immediately tell from the get-go this kid was born for greatness. So Garry arrives and the game kicks off, although there are no full documentary of the gameplay. But all thanks to Levi Rosman, otherwise known as Gotham Chess, an international master, covering the full game review of the ones shown in the video and the ones that played after and prior to the video. And here is the review of the game.
So Garry's finally arrived, and the players begin the game. Magnus plays d4, we have d5 by Garry. So c4, c6. This is known as the Slav defense, and we have a transposition to what's known as the semi-Slav. Magnus responds in very principled fashion with the move bishop g5, and then e3. So he only activates his light-squared bishop after getting his dark-squared bishop out. This is very common for black to put the knight on d7, reinforcing the knight on f6. You might notice that black's bishop on c8 is terrible, and you would notice correctly that bishop has a lifespan to kind of activate itself later. Black slowly gains space in this opening. That's just an opening, it's a preference. But Garry plays a variation with queen to a5, which the queen pins the knight to the king, and you also want to go knight here, because there's no pin there anymore. Magnus plays this move knight d2. This is the best move, and it stops knight e4, and it also unpins like this. And black's idea here is that in many positions, black will take on c4 and attack the bishop on g5 with the queen. Board vision is a big thing. But Garry plays bishop b4, all the main line. We have queen c2, castles, bishop e2. Garry played in this game e5. Both ways, like I said earlier, black is going to strike back in the center later on, making it difficult for white to castle. Except for the fact that white castles immediately, because there's a tactical way to hold it all together. After pawn takes d4, you don't just take back, you play this move knight to b3. Another benefit of moving the knight back and over, because you end up targeting that queen to slow down its initiative. We have queen back, takes, a5, a4, queen c7, and here Magnus Carlsen plays the first new move in chess history at that time, rook to e1. This position had been seen.
Now this goes to show you how phenomenal Magnus is, playing a line, a variation that not a lot of people have played in the past. It's nothing short of amazing, to be very honest. Let's continue.
B4, but not a lot. h6, bishop back to h4, and here Garry plays bishop to d6. I mean, very obvious threat and very obvious defense. Pawn is attacked, you push pawn.
And from here you appreciate the beauty of chess, how these two great players managed to uncork beautiful tactics that are nothing short of amazing. It's just too good to be very.
Garry played the move knight b6, which is very direct. First of all, he removes the guard of that knight, but he attacks the bishop. Now here Magnus took on f6, immediately taking advantage of the fact that this knight has moved, because if Garry were to take back, this is game over. Here there is a beautiful knockout punch. This is why you always look for checks. Queen to g6, and you can't take because of the pin on the pawn. And then you just clean up the pawns and, well, you win. You probably will bring your rook later on and it will just be game over, or your knight, or even bring your bishop back. Now that is not how the game ended. That would have been crazy. Instead, Garry took on c4. But in this position, Magnus plays a really cool move. You would think that he has to move his bishop, but Magnus finds a nice move, knight e4, which is just brilliant. Now the knight is hanging here, and if you take me, I'm gonna take and infiltrate with my queen, and it's game over. Check here, check here, check, here, checkmate with a...
Boy, tell me this is not beautiful. Look at brilliant tactics and brilliant sacrifices made by Magnus. But that didn't work because, of course, Kasparov is just goated, to be very honest.
Pawn. You can't go to the E file because of my rook. Now, if that was the way the game ended, I mean, I don't know, that would have been incredible. But, you know, we're talking about Garry Kasparov, probably the greatest player of all time, if not the, then second, although not according to everybody. Garry played check, king h1. Here, Garry backs the knight up, and that disconnects the queen from the bishop. Magnus takes here, and now there is a check and an attack on the bishop. Magnus plays here, and Garry just immediately jumps the knight back, right? You see him just very quickly do it. He has to because this is under attack, and so is this, and this is the only way to guard both. And then you see Garry kind of, you know, visibly frustrated. So I'm not sure what he missed in this sequence, but he's clearly worse here. The only thing that's going for him is the fact that Magnus doesn't have a lot of time. Also, you know, Garry is like the GOAT, so that's also kind of a problem for Magnus. Why this position is so much better for White? Well, White's got a really strong initiative. White has another target on a5, a very nagging pin, a lot of black pieces aren't developed, and now Magnus just starts throwing it all forward, which I love.
And here Garry shows why he's the GOAT, because he begins to introduce strategies and positional gameplay. Let's continue.
I love that he's not sitting timid. He's trying to play the best move in the position. He's not playing the man, he's playing the position. Garry now finds queen d7, very creative defense, getting the queen out of the way of the pin, knight to d4, and knight f5. Garry is also not playing the man, or in this case, the 13-year-old kid. He's playing the position. He understands that as ugly as it looks, he's got to defend and he's got to be practical. So Garry sacrifices his c-pawn. He just gives it away. Why? Because in doing so, he kind of makes Magnus's pieces a little bit tangled. This knight only hits the rook. Rook moves out of the way. And now after rook d1, you know, queen e6, it's now time for Garry to start mobilizing the forces. You know, a little bit of pressure here. Bishop is going to come out. Maybe rook is going to come out this way. And Magnus's time is ticking, right? So here we have rook to e1. Computer here suggests a completely absurd move, bishop c7. Moving the bishop out of harm's way, and I guess just going for the a-pawn.
Oh yeah, be sure to check out Gotham Chess for the complete review of this game and the ones I played prior and after, and credits to Gotham for making this review.
So basically the engine's like, yo, go get a second pawn. I mean, I don't care if he's Kasparov, but bishop c7 is a tough move to play, and that's all that Garry needed. He trades, he activates the queen, and now once he's gotten his activity, Magnus has to play more defensively. They trade queens, and some moves later they trade rooks. And again, Garry's not like, I must beat this kid at all costs. No, he's just, you know, he's like, I got outplayed there for a few moves, and now I'm not in a great situation. This kid is still, you know, an international master, grandmaster to be. I got to play the position. They trade some pieces, and ultimately some moves later, after a little bit more trading and shuffling, there is no way Magnus can make progress here, even though he's a pawn up. And in this position,
a draw. It's a sensation. Magnus managed to draw against Kasparov.
Here you could see how ecstatic the mom was.
Kasparov couldn't beat Magnus.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
Like and subscribe.